Hello and welcome to That's So Craven, your one-stop shop for all things Fulham. And we are here today to talk about the rather satisfying game against Wolverhampton Wanderers at home, where finally, we get some points, we get some wins, we get some goals. It's a kind of a return to normal, and not a moment too late in my view, and I can't be the only one. But I'm not here on my own. I'm here with a young man who's dressed like he's in the 70s.
No,
Um,
don't do me like that. Come on, that's just rude.
well, yeah, I mean, I'm just taking the look in. And I'm
This
looking
is
at
a
a pair of
current look.
aviators, gold aviators, and a mo. And
Yeah.
yeah, welcome, Sam. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I didn't expect to be slated the second that I came on.
Oh no, not a slating. I just happened to comment on the era
it,
that you seem to be representing.
there was a tone there. There was a tone, which I did
Okay,
not
okay.
appreciate. It's always nice when abuse comes directly from your father. And but we're here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate. We're here to bask. I think you look lovely today, Dad. I have no comments
Thank you.
about that. And yeah, like I mean, look, here's the thing. This might be a chaotic show because you can see that we've prepared rigorously. But you know what? It's all smiles. There's a lot of positivity. I'm trying to emanate that same positivity. Hence the Tom Selleck. Everybody loves a Tom Selleck. Everybody
That's
loves
that's
Alex
that's
Swarby.
it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And let's
That's
lock in.
it.
Let's lock
Tom
in.
Selleck.
Yeah. Tom
Well,
Selleck. Is that
well,
what you were thinking of? You just didn't know what
yeah, I
Magnum
think so.
PI was.
Yeah. Well, no, no. Anyway. Um, we were going to have a few other guests along tonight, but they couldn't make it through various um, medical reasons. Nothing dangerous, but um,
There's one medical reason. The rest we can judge them.
yes. Mark has fatherly duties to
Yeah.
uphold,
Yeah.
and or husband duties actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rest of them are just probably still hungover and
Slackers.
trying. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, let's talk about the game of that Fulham played in last night for us and yesterday afternoon for most of the listeners. Um, Look, it was, as I said, a very welcome return to form and success. And personally, I thought we actually played very well. Every time I said that on our private group chat, I was kind of undermined and by people saying, "Yeah, but it's only 10 men, and yeah, Wolves are shit." I think when you're scratching for form and scratching for results, it doesn't actually matter who you're playing against. You've got to piece it together. You've got to find your rhythm, and you've got to do the simple things really well. And I actually thought we did really well yesterday. We moved the ball around really quickly, and it was a bit of a return to the Fulham of old, the winning Fulham, and I liked it. Sam, what did you think?
I also liked it. I echo your sentiments. Because see it this way: when there is a red card, you do want to capitalize that. And if it was a 1-0 win, I would have been devastated, or not devastated, but I would have seen that as a missed opportunity. This was a confidence showing. Wolves slipped up, and then so we battered them, which was wonderful. And not only did we do it quite convincingly, I think just with like some key changes to like the lineup, it's actually kind of given me something to be hopeful about because the
Mm,
past couple of
I agree.
weeks it's been nothing but dread. And
Yeah,
with the introduction of like Kevin really slotting in so well, even Chikwueze, I thought when he was introduced, I'm like, why is this boy not getting more minutes? But obviously, the key thing, which we'll probably be talking about at nauseum today with big smiles, is Alex Iwobi. And can I just say, before we get into any kind of like technical analysis, I've said this on previous podcasts before, but I am very, very over the two-man enforcer, and nothing has validated that opinion more than the other night. Just because, like, to have some creativity actually in the middle again, it just felt so much better in every possible way. You say things.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm going to try and do this for the next hour, but I'll just bring you back to the start of the game, but let's try and go through this in a
We can
relatively
try.
systematic way. Yeah, I will try.
It's so
So
boring when we do systematic. Can't we just live in the moment? Can't we
yeah,
just breathe?
we're going to live in every moment. We're going to talk about all the things that are big moments.
No, but you want to do it chronologically, and I don't want to.
Well, okay. Let's pretend we're not doing it chronologically, but let's talk about the lineup, and let's talk about did Diop deserve to lose his place to a fit again Anderson? Did Bassi deserve to hold his place after a couple of clangers in recent weeks, with Cuenca doing a really masterful job, but having to warm the bench on a miserable day in West London? Is Tete fully back now and replacing Castagna, who again stood in really well for an injured Tete? Obviously, we still have a big hole on the left fullback with Jedi still nowhere near starting, not even in the squad. We don't know a lot about that. I think I read some rumours about his availability might be mid-November, but I may have made that up. And then, of course, as you mentioned before, we had a first Premier League start for Kevin and Harry Wilson back. And perhaps the biggest story of all is Alex Iwobi finally being let loose in the middle of the park alongside Berger. Tell me about all of those things, Sam.
I promise I'm not going to be antagonistic for the whole show, but you've asked me like 6 questions. Can we
one at a time? Tell me about Diop. I'll walk you through
thank
it.
you.
Tell me about Diop.
Okay, Diop. Also, I really like this quick fire approach that we're rocking with now. Okay, Diop. I actually think like Diop has a mistake in him, and that's okay. I was
not this season. Not this
season. No, totally get that. I quite like Anderson being there as a captain, especially like,
yeah, I agree.
See it this way. Even though I will say Diop and Cuenca have actually been very, very good together when they've been on, and I have also quite liked Anderson and Cuenca. I do still. I'm a purist. I like Anderson and Bassi, and also as well, if Iwobi, like, genuinely, and you saw it actually a lot in the game, if Iwobi's starting, I really like Bassi being there because they link up so well together, and they're very, very friendly with each other, like off the pitch as well. And you can really, really see that. You can kind of just see that, like, they actually work very, very cohesively with
they love
each
playing
other.
together.
They really love playing together, and I kind of really like that energy. And if anything, it's sometimes it's actually less about like who's the better player and more about how well everybody like works in with each other. On top of that as well, I thought Tete actually did very, very well considering. I quite like his link up with like Anderson. I don't think he stole the show by any means, but like I think it was a decent showing, and I'm always going to rate him over Castagna. Pretty much like following off the back of the point I made about like Bassi and Iwobi. I really, really, really like Kevin and Cess. I really, really, really like Kevin and Cess together, like on that left side, because I think like Robinson's great, but Robinson's really, really thematic. Whereas basically the only way I can describe it is Cess and Kevin like play, like they actually just do like some schoolyard bullshit together, and it's really really effective, and they're kind of like encouraging each other. And Cess has really become this like strong physical player now. Like he's not the boy that he used to be. He can actually defend. Um, but when he can defend and he can also go forward, he's actually turning into a really, really, really good player. Like, I don't think we're going to lose Robinson anytime soon. But I mean, Cess is making a really, really good case for potentially being a starter. Like, not necessarily over him, but as long as like and Robinson isn't like fully fit, I'm really, really liking what Cess is doing, and he's only just proving me right every single week. What is
Well,
that?
if
Everybody?
you think about it, no, but if you think about Robinson comes back, and let's say his rehab's really good, and his
Mm.
form finds his form really quickly, that's a massive problem for Silver to leave Cess out. He's been a really good contributor,
I don't think he leaves
and I
Cess up. I mean, you can potentially push Cess up.
and drop Kevin.
Well, I mean, Kevin's only done like one debut so far, so I don't even think it's an official drop. But I think they can like play together a lot more cohesively.
Well,
I think
I
it.
don't know what the answer is, but it's a great
Yeah,
problem to have. It's a really
yeah.
really good problem to have. Talk to me about Alex Iwobi in the middle
Oh, I just
and
love
Lukic
creativity in the middle.
effectively being dropped.
Look, okay. Lukic has had some good moments the last couple of weeks. But I have been pretty vocal, and I'll kind of die on the hill that I don't really like the Berg Lukic system. Even if it works, it's I say this a lot in just kind of just like general work. I'd rather like hobble in the right direction than be perfect in the wrong direction. And maybe it's controversial, but I don't love that. I think it's stable, but it lacks a lot. And the
Well, it's safe, isn't it? It's safe.
yeah, it's too conservative for me. And I'm not saying I want all out chaos, contrary to what some people might think. But I do want some balance in there, and I think Berg is actually a decent balance. And because we can't really get it with Canny, because Canny is he's creative, and like he's got a shot on him, and like obviously like, but he's like, bless him, he's just a bit too old, and he doesn't have like the energy that somebody like Alex Iwobi has, or potentially Josh King. I'm gonna die on that hill. Can actually bring to that position, and I was so validated by Iwobi's performance, because it's everything that I've been saying all year, or really, I should say everything that we've all been saying, because I know Skibby definitely echoes that, and I'm pretty sure I've heard Dave and Mark say like similar things as well. Yeah, and then on top of that as well, Chikawazy as well, also being in that position, just tripled it down for me.
Well, I thought. Thank goodness Rao fit again, so we actually did have a recognised striker
Yeah.
up front.
Mm.
Fantastic, also obviously to see Muniz on the bench and therefore fit. That was
Mhm.
really really good.
Yeah.
Um, I thought not only were so many people screaming for Alex Iwobi to be given an opportunity in the middle, and Silva being
Mhm.
so really stubborn, not only just stubborn, just going literally talking it down like people were insane for even suggesting it, which is bonkers
Mm.
anyway, because Iwobi's played in the middle, for not much of his career, but certainly
He's done it.
at a
Yeah, he did
very,
it.
very high. He's absolutely done it and been successful there.
Mm.
I thought it was um, it just kind of seemed ridiculous how successful he was and how this has never really been given a chance. Maybe Silver, in his conservatism, was waiting for a really weak opposition before
Mm.
trying it, and maybe a lot of the banter in the press conferences where he seemed so negative to it was maybe a bit of gamesmanship and not wanting to give anything away. But what I thought was really interesting, I thought number one, he was fantastic. He was everywhere. He was
Mm.
he people were finding him and he was all over the park in defence and
mm,
progressing us into attack everywhere, linking up with the wingers. Really, really good. But I thought two other really great consequences were I saw something different in Berger. I don't know whether I was just looking for it, but I feel like Berger, um, he looked looser and a bit looser in a good sense, as in not so uptight and just kind of rusted on to his defensive role. But I saw him looking to be more creative. He played two creative balls, little beautiful little weighted passes forward that I haven't seen a lot of from Berger
mm,
this season at all, and for most of last season. And I think everyone knows it's in him, but
mm,
somehow the dynamic has not been there to unleash that, which I think is really exciting. And the
mm.
other thing that I thought Iwobi did was absolutely link up and bring Josh King very much into the game. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting as well.
Mm,
Um, and as I said, Raul, good to see Raul, fit. now,
mm,
now we're being happy that our players are fit. And as I commented to our WhatsApp group last night, it feels like suddenly the clouds have lifted, and we seem to be, fingers crossed, we seem to be over that pretty miserable injury period where we were just
mm,
so unlucky with so many key players out. Suddenly, in a moment, and from one week to the next, we seem to be through that, which is
mm.
a relief, to be honest.
I have a question here. I do want to talk about Burger as well, but I've kind of just got like a general question because I think in a lot of ways you can kind of see Silva's checking out a little bit. And I think he's kind of just like loosening his grip. And essentially I think his cares are getting a bit lower. So then he kind of has this natural conservatism, but I think it's kind of turning into a little bit of like, well, fine, Iwobi can go there because I don't have the options to actually do what I want. But then I actually think that's proving to be quite effective. And I think him kind of like I don't even actually think it's being more flexible. I actually think it's a bit of negligence on his part. I know that's potentially a raucous thing to say, but I kind of get that energy because it's more just kind of I don't feel that like Silva is setting up in the way that he wants to at the moment, but I actually think it's better. And I think even when the substitutions came on, it still felt like better than anything that we've been doing all year.
Well, he Silver seemed, for if you take it in, pardon me, if you take it into the sort of context of how things have been over the last, say, 2 to 4
Yeah.
weeks,
Which you
where
can't not.
Silver's
You
been,
can't not.
yeah,
Like,
where Silver's been very stressed and very vocal and pretty angry, and some would say kind of checked out. He's got his Hawaiian shirt on. He's sort
yeah.
of eye out the door, which I think is what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
um, I think it's interesting that if we had gotten a goal, God forbid, 2 goals down in the first half yesterday through just against the run of play,
Mm,
complete flukes, I think he would have totally lost his shit. And yesterday he seemed quite relaxed because there was actually nothing to be that stressed about
yeah,
because
borderline
Wolves
nonchalant.
weren't. Yeah, but I wonder whether he's checked out and his mind is elsewhere, or
Mm,
whether he was just dealt a situation where his team was, you know, didn't even need him to rev them up
mm,
or be angry about anything because things were pretty much going our way. I mean, we dominated possession. Um, what is another gift to us was uh, Andre and Gomez not being selected to start.
mm,
Um, I thought we pretty much had it completely all our own way in midfield. And I note the comment here from Jim 2481 following along on the live stream where, thank you, producer,
Thank you.
where he said, bit tricky to say whether the Iwobi burger access is long term a good thing given how completely dire Wolves were, and I think that that's fair comment. And then, of
Yeah.
course, when they went down to 10 men, it made the job even easier for us. But I still say you still got to play well because I've seen Fulham um, in poor form against 10 men make a
Mm,
bloody meal of it and not look like we're actually going to either be comfortable
mm,
or going to overwhelm an opposition.
yeah.
I thought,
Also, we
I
scored
thought,
before the card actually happened in the
absolutely,
first place.
absolutely. I mean, Cesc scores in the ninth minute,
Mm,
um, and on that, talking around here, but that's okay. I thought Raul had a pretty quiet game actually, but when I think about it, Raul was actually um, an integral part uh,
mm,
of of both of our first two goals.
mm,
Firstly, he gets a ball played out of defence or defensive midfield from, I believe it was Bassi, and very
yes.
quick, very quick thinking. He one touch passes the ball into free space for Cesc to run onto. And it was a really well weighted and smart bit of football. Cesc has got a fair bit to do at that point. Goalkeeper doesn't do as well as. I mean, I think I'd be a bit disappointed if Leno had probably hadn't got a firmer hand to that.
Mm,
But all credit to Cesc, he still had a bit to do, and he puts the ball away for our first goal. So Raul's done a good job there. Raul's also cleverly controlled the ball down the right wing, just outside the
mm,
box, to head the ball down for our second goal. I think he cuts it back. Berger has a bit of a shot, and then uh, I think Harry Wilson. It falls to Harry Wilson, who then scores a goal. But again,
mm.
Raul, no big plaudits, no grandstanding, but I thought he did a couple of very smart things. But certainly there's an assist for him in the Cesc goal, but obviously not technically an assist
Yeah, but
for the
like
Harry Wilson goal. But he made it happen.
either of those goals don't happen without Raul. And I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, but we do so much with our wingers that when I do expect them Muniz to score. But with Raul, I don't necessarily need that from him because he is an aging player. We have got him on a bit of like a relic kind of like contract. I know it's a high wage bill, but I don't see him in that role that is literally going to just appear out of nowhere and get a result. If anything, whenever he does actually score, it's a bit of a lovely surprise. I actually rely on him more for like threading things through and being a stable presence actually on the pitch. And that's exactly what he was like last night. He threaded the ball beautifully in a very Berbatov-esque way. I reckon he probably took about like 3 steps in that whole movement. But that's kind of what I want. I don't need him to be all out exuberance and um, using a shitload of energy. I want Muniz to be doing that. I kind of need them both for like different things. And I thought he played his role perfectly.
Well, Steve Reynolds, our tireless follower on every platform available to
Mhm.
listeners, readers, and
Shout out, Steve.
forum followers of the Fulham, That's So Craven family. Um, Yeah, Steve comments here that apart from the fact that Wolves sacked Pereira, which that was written all over his face as he walked off the ground last night, poor bloke. Um, he thinks Rao played with an injury, and he probably did.
Hmm.
Um, but I've been a bit critical of Raul over the years. I've just sort of wanted more. But actually, if I think about it, if Raul's career ended at Christmas, and say for example we sold him or he retired or something like that, and I looked back and reflected on it, I think he's actually been a pretty good servant for us.
Oh,
I think
100%.
he's done a pretty good job, scored a reasonable number of goals, and actually been a pretty good professional for us.
Hmm. Oh, do you know what he is? He's been like Martin Freeman in like The Office. He hasn't necessarily been like the main titular role, but he has been incredibly effective. He's not David Brent, he's not Gareth, but he's been exactly what we needed him to be in order to facilitate all the other things. Because he was never brought in to be a starring role. So I think we're actually going to look back on him a lot fonder, because I actually don't think that Muniz gets the position that he is without Raul, because Muniz, his confidence probably would have dropped if he had to play the entire season in that position. If anything, it's actually been very, very good to have Raul start these games and then Muniz to come on and have his hero moment, because as long as Muniz is getting that, I don't care whether he starts or not. I will die on this hill. I'll fight anybody about it, because it's actually more important to actually have that confidence and to actually have that self-belief. I'm on this really interesting book at the moment about positive visualization. And what it's actually very, very important in athletes more so than anything else, because they have to be able to visualize what they can actually achieve. Because their level of fitness, it's the same across the board. Like everybody is pretty much the same level of fitness. And you could probably argue that most of them, or 90% of them, are actually at a very similar level of skill. It comes down to belief. And if people believe that they can achieve things, it's actually very, very, I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that if they believe that they can do it, they can. And it's also why, as well, I really, really like Chikwueze, I really like King, and I really like Kevin and Muniz. All these guys are playing with belief. And so I just want to see as much of them as physically possible. Raul doesn't necessarily play with that same belief, but what he does play with is a very intelligent understanding of how the game actually works. It's a very elder statesman role, and I appreciate him for that.
And let us never forget that despite his high wages, he cost us 5 million. You know, it was a steal.
Yeah,
It
that's a
was a
steal.
project, and it has worked. It's been successful. Let me ask you this question to continue that thought process. If Raul left, in a couple of months' time, do you think Muniz is ready? Do you think he's ready to be the man and lead the line week in, week out,
Honestly,
through bad
no.
times? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So, well, yeah, I'm giving you an honest response. I genuinely don't think he is. I think he needs somebody pushing him. And I think actually, if he was the main guy at this stage, from everything that I've seen, I think it would be kind of detrimental to his progress a little bit. And he is still young, and he's not an all out Haaland. And it's really, really funny if I think of somebody like um Imbuemo at United. Because I remember him at Brentford, and he was very, very good at Brentford. But he's kind of transcended to another level at United, because he has people pushing him, and there is a lot less relying on him to actually be this titular role. So as a result, he can actually thrive. And I think Muniz kind of like needs that. I think Muniz doesn't necessarily need to be coddled, but he needs to have a good amount of support around him, because again, he's a young player, but I think he's only going to get better and better and better. So if Raul leaves at any time in like the next 18 months, I'm actually okay with that, provided we actually find somebody who can fill that spot effectively.
Yeah. Look, I think that's probably fair. Steve Reynolds comments here on the live stream. He thinks Raul will stay because he wants to keep his fitness up and play at the right level to
Yeah,
be a contender for Mexico in the
I
next
want
World Cup.
I
And
would want that
probably
wage as well.
you're right.
Mm.
Um, Tell me about Kevin. First time we saw Kevin, obviously we've seen a bit of him. He burst onto the scene in a little tasty cameo against Leeds. Did some incredible trickery. Looked really really dangerous. And then he faded out a little bit. I don't know if it was a bit of an injury that he copped to his shoulder, which has actually been bothering him, but he hasn't made the same impression over the last weeks. Neither has he been given an opportunity to start, which is not unlike Marco Silva wanting to onboard people. He's like that. He's like that employer who wants to have like a 4 year probation period,
Oh my
doesn't he?
god, doesn't he ever? Like,
Um, how did you think he went last night? And what are your thoughts about this guy? Do you rate him? Do you think he's the shit?
I rate him. I rate him. Well, but the thing that I really like about him is I think Kevin rates Kevin. And I
Mm.
really, really want that in my players. I really, really want that
He's
level of
got
like
some swagger, hasn't he? He's got some swag. He's got a he's
you
just got
need
that little
that.
smile. It's not stink arrogance, but he
No.
looks like he's so internally confident, and it's
Mm.
very very attractive.
Yeah, but
Um,
don't you desperately want that? Because like I mean,
sure,
everybody loves that like underdog, and I mean I love the quality that Harry Wilson and I think Josh King has this where it's just kind of like it's just like this grit to them where they just kind of like keep on trying, and it's like um the little train that could. That's like their kind of like vibe, but um that doesn't necessarily translate all the time to effective performance. Sometimes I think you kind of need to be a bit of an asshole, and I really marvel at players who can do this and can kind of like go in with just like this confidence to a game and this self belief. And I really, really see that in this guy. And I think when you're playing with somebody like that, you just want to give them the ball as much as physically possible because
which is
whether
starting to
they
happen. We're looking for him.
yeah, yeah. And like I mean why wouldn't you look for him? So if anything it actually really irritates me that Silva has been so conservative with this guy. And I understand his blooding technique, but I mean we have talented players. We've got people like Smith Rowe and Cess and not Awerbi as much, but and even like Traore, and you can kind of tell in all the players that I've just listed there, bar Traore, that there's always been a bit of a confidence kind of issue with the way in which they play and the way in which they're kind of like finding their form. We have somebody that actually believes that they can do it, whether they have form or not. I want that guy as much as physically possible. Whether that actually makes rational, logical sense is completely separate to me because you know me very well. I'm a big psychology boy. And I think so much of sport at this level actually is psychology based. And I want the people who have a delusional sense of self belief to be passing that on to like others and basically pollinating people like Cess and Young. That's actually why I really like Kevin and Cess so much um because they're playing so close together, obviously, that Kevin is playing with so much determination and belief that that must be infectious for Cess. And I mean, you get the
Yeah,
results.
yeah. Well, I think what's really interesting with the three names you're talking about there, from Kevin to King in the middle to Chukwueze on the other side,
Oh,
they are
Chukwueze great.
all really skillful, very direct, very positive, very not arrogant, but just so self confident.
Mm,
And they will all of them will love taking on a man
mm,
when they're not enjoying knocking the ball round, literally like they're playing in a
yeah,
side alley.
I know,
And
I know,
it's
I know. Sorry. I know we're
go
jumping.
on.
I know we're jumping so far ahead, but can we just briefly talk about Chikawese's feet for just 1 second? Because that after he
Sure.
missed that first goal, then when he went to get like the second, and he danced around like four Wolves players, that
Yeah,
was
he's exciting.
spectacular. That was spectacular to watch. Sorry, go on.
It's interesting. There was a lot of hype and noise and excitement around Kevin because we were chasing him for quite a while
Mm,
in the transfer market, and I always had a thought that Chukwueze actually could surprise people. He
mm,
he he looks really 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 good, and obviously he's had a little bit of a fitness setback as well. But I think once Marco gets over himself and actually feels comfortable picking the likes of Kevin and Chukwueze every week, and and you've got King doing what he's doing at the moment, having a fantastic season with those two alongside of him, and Iwobi um, centrally, if that persists, I hope. That is really exciting. That is really, really exciting.
It is really exciting, but I do kind of want to pose the question, like, do you think like Silver's kind of in a bit of like a tools down kind of era where he like, because I mean, what we're actually describing to think like long term about these things, it does require a certain amount of like effort and forward thinking. And if Silver isn't invested long term, I can, not that I agree with it, but I can kind of understand why he'd be like, well, I could put this person in, but then that's probably going to be a little bit more effort for me, and I'm looking elsewhere, you know?
Look, I think there's a lot of speculation. I think externally, we're all looking at Silver absolutely hard on sleeve, complaining a lot, being
Mm.
pretty irate with the situation, which
Quite
I,
rightly.
I I think I think very few people surely could be surprised at his unhappiness and frustration.
Mm.
What I don't understand, I guess we'll never understand, is what his relationship is truly like with the Khans and with Alistair McIntosh and the kind of the management of the club, who obviously, Alistair McIntosh doesn't get involved on a week to week basis and has very little involvement in the football side of things, you'd think, but he does affect Silver's ability to operate because has a big part, one would imagine, in the buying and selling of players.
Mm.
Then you've got the kind of who knows where Marco sits, how much autonomy Marco has in terms of the role and relationship he has with our director of football.
Mm.
Just how much Shahid actually comes crashing through and fixes problems when Silver throws his toys out of the cot, and whether Shahid sort of busts his way through and gives Silver what he wants, for want of a better word. So I mean, there are mixed messages about the Khans saying they really want Silver to stay
Yeah,
and
but they
sign
would say
another
that.
contract.
So.
Yeah, of course, everyone's going to be saying that. But I
Mm.
just wonder what it really is. I mean, if Silver, for example, gets given some sort of guarantee that he could see on the table, that he can believe is truly going to be given, and it's like, okay, X pounds to be
Mm.
spent, and if these are moreover, if these are the 5 players that you want, within reason, we will buy them for you, and we're not going to quibble about 2 or 3 million here or there, and we're going to bring them in early. Uh,
But
you know,
like, yeah, okay.
would that really be such a terrible prospect of a job
Yeah.
situation for Marco Silva? Or do you
Well,
think
I think
he's so over it that even if Shahid Khan bought those players on the first day of the next window,
mm.
Marco's still going to leave? Do you think the bridges are burnt so badly?
Well, I think you've got enough business acumen and you've kind of like lived in these kind of environments enough to kind of like know that after 4 years and you're so kind of like fatigued with how higher ups essentially manage situations and behave, like that trust must be eroded by this point. And yeah, you can offer and promise and you can do all that, but say you're in Silver's position, are you trusting that? I'm probably not. I'm probably looking at like going, right, I can only go off previous information of the last 4 years, and I'm so annoyed with you guys. I was going to swear. Yeah, I'm so frustrated with the situation that has just been ongoing that you can make kind of any offer to me, and I just don't care anymore. I think the only thing that would have sealed it would probably be like if we were breaking into Europe. I think that's actually what his goal is, because I don't think he's got any issues with like the players at all. I don't think, and the players don't seem to have any issues with him. It doesn't necessarily seem to be like anything to do with him versus the players or any egos there. I think actually the players seem to have like so much respect for him, And I actually think he's quite a respectable figure when you actually look at other clubs and the way in which they have the relationships with uh, their players. I was about to say students there for a sec. Yeah, so I think it would just totally just come down to him just being so at like a loss of just kind of like how much he can actually trust his employers. And I kind of get that, but no, I don't know. What like would you trust the Khans at this point if you're Silver?
I think it's probably a matter of what we see in the bi-weekly press conferences and the interviews that he's forced to or
Just looks so
subjected to with it.
tired.
It must be exhausting because he's got to maintain a certain amount of decorum. He can't slag his bosses off because he will be sacked,
Mm,
and so he's had to maintain a position. But obviously, the reality is there's very little business done, and he's struggled to hide his frustrations with that. We sit and watch, from afar and externally, watch this stuff week to week, but we actually have other lives and we go and do other things. He's
yeah.
living it, and it must be exhausting,
It's
utterly,
either
utterly exhausting.
it's either he's emotionally checked out at this point, or he's building a peptic ulcer. Like
Hmm.
it's one of the two, because like you can only kind of like be in that position so long, and you can only kind of believe things people are feeding you so long. And yeah, this is a very very interesting period in kind of like the Marco Silva like law, if you will. Like because there is a lot to be optimistic about, but I think that actually comes way more from like the actual players more so than Silva, which is kind of counterintuitive to everything that we've kind of like experienced with like a Silva team over the last 4 years.
But if you think about it, right? Uh, we believe, well, we don't believe, we know Marcus Silva is incredibly ambitious,
Yeah.
and he's never got a team into Europe. He
Mm,
believes that's his destiny, and he believes he can be successful there. Um, he's sort of got all the tools in place, and he's an incumbent. He's comfortable, knows his way around. He's got call it 80% cohesion
mm,
and quality in the squad he's got. But maybe there's I don't know. We can argue about the numbers, but let's call it he needs 20% more, right?
mm,
Um, Notwithstanding the frustrations that he must have and the disrespect he must have for the way in which the club is run, with the director of football role being, just underperforming. Let's say it.
mm,
There must be there just has to be a problem in the way in which we just do recruitment, because
mm,
the way I look at it is that it doesn't only seem to be a money and funds problem. We just
mm,
seem to fail when we're chasing players and we get beaten to the line. And I wonder whether that's a lack of staff to do the job, or we're just not good at it, or we don't engage early enough. All those things, right? But let's say if we think Marcus Silva has this ambition to be a manager in Europe and finish, let's say finish fourth, fifth, sixth, somewhere around there in the Premier League.
oh, that's
It
a big call.
Well, I'm just saying that's perhaps what you've got to set your sights on. Even if you achieve seventh or eighth, great, right?
Mm,
And it may be as simple. I know I'm really breaking this down into simple terms, but
yeah,
it may be that five really, really key players in a window, turning over our squad by five, maybe six players, does that. A director of football can turn up twice a year and sit in the cottage. The owners, Mr. Khan, can turn up once a year and take Marco out for a nice aperitif on his yacht, and
mm,
Ali Mack can you know be a bean counter and not
mm,
refuse to refurbish the toilets at the Hammy End, particularly the ladies. I can't understand why they don't do that. Anyway, That's my side beef. Um,
Fair.
but and uh, but imagine if the simple commitment that he gets from the Khans is okay. I'm going to give you 6 players. I'm going to give them to you. Why wouldn't he stay? He can
I,
insulate himself. He can
I,
isolate himself. Give me the 6 players. I get on well with my team. Everyone's happy. I've turned over, the 3 or 4 players in the squad that we think are not quite up to it. I've got, that more firepower in the striker role. Maybe if, let's say, Wobie doesn't work out in the middle, I've got another central midfielder and maybe some depth on other sides. Surely that's enough for him to
well,
get
here's the
on with the
thing.
job.
Here's the thing though. I don't know like what the actual breakdown actually is because I'm sure Silva has actually asked for things. I'm not sure if it's a communication problem. I'm not sure if it's false promises. I'm not sure really where like it's lost there because we always see that like we're chasing these specific players and then something breaks down. So I'm not sure if it's
Mm.
something. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the kick in the chain actually is. So it's hard to speculate. But what if I'm Silver? I think I can kind of safely go. They can promise me anything, but I'm not going to get it.
Well, I think it's. I used
Or I
to
might get
think
one.
that I used to think that there was kind of an ineptitude around just commercials, and we're just not very good at it. We always get beaten to the punch, and other people seem to get these players that would be great for us. But
Mm,
actually, they seem to have fetishized a desire to do these, uh, you um, end of transfer period or end of transfer window deals. They
hate
actually that they actually there's a preference for doing this,
it. Mm,
and there's so many problems with that. Number one, it's so high risk because if it doesn't work and you can't get the paperwork in time, or you just can't get it over the line in time, as you're trying to do 3 of them, it doesn't
mm,
work. Plus, Marco's been robbed of possibly 8 weeks of preparation time, and if in the context of how Marco Silva likes to prepare, that those are 8 weeks that he's going to chew out of the season. He's doesn't
mm,
matter when you bring that new player in, he's not going to allow them to start. Whereas
mm.
perhaps if you brought the player in 8 weeks earlier, you might be somewhat closer to getting a full season out of them. So there's all
Oh,
these
they need a
problems, and I think.
preseason.
Sorry.
They need a preseason as well. You see it all the
Oh,
time when we bring
yeah,
players in who've
absolutely.
had a preseason and who've not. It's just night and day. Steve actually makes a really good question here. Actually,
Mm.
if by buying 6 players and breaking SCR rules and getting points deductions, would it be worth it? And to be honest, I actually kind of think it would be because see it this way: you can have a points deduction, but if you're still making up them points, then I actually think it's worth it because like, I would actually take a slap on the wrist to actually benefit ourselves long term in the future. Because honestly, everything about football tells me that whether it's ethically right or wrong, that is actually how you succeed in football. You risk it for the biscuit. You maybe do something slightly unethical in terms of like price wise, cop a punishment. Maybe you don't, but at the end of the day, it's about the end result. I'm not saying that's good.
Well,
I'm just saying that's how football works.
well, it's business, isn't it? I mean, but let's look at
100%.
that practically, right? Let's look at that practically. 6 players, that's quite a chunky amount. I've always been somewhat cynical about our hiding behind PSR rules and
Me
what
too.
what in fact we can and can't do. It's
Me
part
too.
of me that we're not entirely privy to exactly how the numbers work and exactly where in the sliding horizon of the way these numbers actually are calculated, what we are able to spend. Everyone is, I think, quite forgiving, and wants to naively believe sometimes that
But
the reason why we don't do this stuff is because we simply can't. I don't always
it really
believe that.
irks me. Yeah, because it's
I don't always
bureaucratic
believe that. And
nonsense.
there's just some big money like the Polina dollars or the Polina pounds and euros, the Metro pounds. There's some big dollars that went into sunk account somewhere that didn't seem
Yeah.
to come out the other end, and I don't know, but so I'm not entirely sure exactly how close we are to the wind on
Mm.
PSR compliance, but I got a feeling that that isn't a problem. Just that's my
I
gut
completely
feeling.
agree. I completely agree.
I could be I could be wrong, and I could make a fool of myself by saying that, but
No,
I'm
you
calling
can have
bullshit.
no, no,
I don't believe it. Right.
no. Look, I
Secondly,
worked in private health insurance for a long time. That as well is needlessly complex, just for the sake that people don't understand it, so you can actually get away with some sketchier things. I think it's the exact same thing with SCR. It benefits people that don't necessarily want to understand the rules because it's seemingly too complex. But then when you actually kind of break down the rules, you actually realize that there is a lot of leeway, and I think that's entirely what SCR is. It's kind of like
well,
gatekeeping the idea.
here's the other thing: is if you look at the ways in which Chelsea and Man City, who
100%. And Newcastle.
have have actually they do have a commitment to excellence
Mhm,
around the executive management or their advisors, and sure, it's a bit cute, but they have from time to time come up with very creative ways in which accounting can be recorded, and
mhm,
at least it gives you a fighting chance of actually making some of these things possible. The Khans have actually got a sports empire with a number of different entities on and offshore that they could be shuffling money around. We could be transferring or selling some assets to in and out of other things. AEW, we've talked about that many times.
mhm,
AEW could be a very valuable sponsor for
mhm.
the club and somehow bring in an awful lot of revenue. And that would be paper shuffling within the Khan network, but it would enable us to spend money. So why aren't they doing that? Because that I just don't believe it. I think the money is there in theory because they've got the wealth,
Mm.
but I just don't believe they are prepared to spend it.
Yeah, I actually think it's almost like a bit of like real estate in the sense that it's more important that they actually have something than whether they actually do anything with it. Because I think the more that they accumulate, the more that they can actually have just kind of passive revenue off of all the things that they accumulate, as opposed to whether it actually being more financially beneficial for them and actually applying care. Because see it this way, you can also like we don't need to necessarily like spend money on players. You can just have a completely different way in which you kind of like structure your business, like Brentford and Brighton do. Like they have a completely different way, and they kind of go, well, this is a stepping stone club. Crystal Palace are actually getting pretty good at it as well, where they go, right, we're developing young talent. We're always going to do young talent with the intention of selling them off, so then we can actually get our revenue through our players. It was, and then what they do is they actually hire people who are intelligent, who actually can give them some insights on. There's a million ways you can actually do
So
this. There's a million ways to do
let's
maths.
just let's just go back to Steve Reynolds' question. Would it be worth buying six high quality players, copying a points deduction, and just dealing with it? You know what? I'm saying it would. I'm
Me
saying it would
too.
be.
Yeah.
You're buying six. It's got to be quality players. Like you pull the stops out. You don't spend 100 million, but really good quality players. You cop a points deduction. How many points could that be, Steve? Maybe you could give us a indication of what you think for your six magical mythical players. What sort of points
Maybe
deduction that might
it's
equal?
like
Look,
11 or
it,
something like
it,
that.
it, it wouldn't be worth being relegated over and
No.
dropping out of the Premier League because that's precarious. I'd
Yeah.
never ever advocate that, right? But if it meant you copped a one time points deduction and it yeah, okay, 5 to 8 points, Steve's saying. Yeah, that sounds about right to me. So the question to me is, could six world class players added to our squad um, earn us more than 5 to 8 points in the season? And the answer
I'm
is
saying 100%
absolutely
yes.
yes.
100%
It,
yes.
it
Not even a question for me.
and even if that ended, you ended up in 14th position as a result of your points deduction, you might actually win a cup along the way, and that
Yeah.
would give you Europe anyway.
Yeah, and then you pretty much like
I
make up
and
whatever you lost in terms of
and your
fines.
points deduction is a one-time tax on a way of getting around this bullshit that is PSR, which is entirely cynically designed to keep the the poor boys out.
Mm,
You cop it once, you effectively restructure, and you leapfrog over an organic process, and you move the whole ship along. Yep, I do it. I do it.
I
Not in the
I really
ridiculous way that, not in the ridiculous way that Forest have done it, because they've done it almost in a Chelsea-esque kind of a way,
mm,
where they haven't got good value out of the money they've spent. And maybe long term they do, but it's so bloody chaotic in terms of what seems to be happening there.
mm.
Oh, well, I think we're talking about a surgical operation where you drop the SAS in, you get those 6 players in, you cop the points on the chin, you get a deduction, but somehow
Mm.
or other you wake up the next morning and you've got the squad you want, and onwards and upwards. Yep, I'm up for it.
I love how people tuned in to hear us talk about football, and it will always be devolve into Socratic business analysis of the cards. But that's what
Yeah,
you
well,
tuned in for.
maybe.
You knew what the show was going to be, kids. You knew exactly what the show was going to be from the intro.
Yeah, yeah. Look, there's probably not that much more to. Well, we've certainly moved right away from talking about football and
Yeah.
what happened yesterday,
I
but
want to briefly
um,
shout out Harry Wilson. I do want to shout out Harry Wilson because I thought Harry Wilson
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
I think he played great, and I'm really really appreciating what Harry Wilson is actually bringing to the squad at the moment.
He did very well. Nice little goal, and yeah, I thought his
Yeah,
contribution was pretty good
well
yesterday.
worked. Yeah.
Yeah. Just before we do wrap up, and to just sort of tie a bow on this,
Hmm.
can I just say again that fingers crossed, I feel like it was a bit of a moment yesterday that we seem to be hopefully over our really miserable, frustrating period where our squad were really kind of seriously undermined. And
Mm,
it feels like all of a sudden a lot of these players um, have come back and are now available, which is really really good news. I mean, look, if none of these games in the Premier League are easy, but even games like Everton away, which shouldn't be problematic, but they're not going to be easy games. They still don't compare to the fixtures we had at the start of the season,
mm,
half of which we had to play with a fully depleted squad. So
mm.
there is some hope over the next couple of weeks that we can actually push on, accumulate a few points, maybe a couple of solid wins, which hopefully sees us by the end of November, um, you know, somewhere around the mid-table, which would be good going. Hopefully, fingers crossed, and everything else.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, Sam, because I
Mm.
know it's pretty late for you. It's pushing midnight for you, so I appreciate you hanging around while I put my grandchildren and your nephews to bed.
That's okay.
Um, uh, I yeah, I want to actually give yet another plug for the Discord, which we must. That's actually really, really going so well at the moment. After after or during and after the Newcastle game, it was actually nuts in there. I mean, to the point where I completely lost track of what was being talked about. There were so many messages, hundreds and hundreds of messages, really popping off, which can only mean one thing: that people are finding it a good place to commune and talk about Fulham and express really good ideas and have you know, some extremely wise and prolific people, and others just happy to listen and contribute the odd comment from time to time. So please get around it. Join our Discord. You'll find it everywhere that you see this moniker on socials. Get around it. It's free. It's good.
It's free. It's
Sam,
free. It's fun. Yeah.
Sam, anything else you want to talk about?
Oh, what else? I've actually been getting into this habit. What? Okay.
Oh God, I
What have
shouldn't have said this.
No, 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 no. So like what like not like a habit I'm doing outside of this podcast. I'm just saying just like it's not like I'm getting more into like clipping my toenails or something like that. But like what okay. What this week has made you happy?
What this week has made me happy? Ooh,
Mm.
oh, that's a good question. Um, honestly, honestly, I get a lot of joy from my grandchildren, Sam. That's what makes me happy.
Ah, that's lovely. You could have said something Fulham related, but I'm so glad that you didn't.
No, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
no. That's straight
yeah.
up. I get to spend. I'm very lucky. I get to spend a lot of time with them. I get to spend a lot of time one on one with them, quizzing them and finding out the weird and wonderful things in their heads, and just feeling the love.
Ah, that's very nice. That's a lovely way to end this wonderful show. 3 points and the love for like your grandchildren and my nephews. Big up Miles and Henry.
Well, there are a few more than that. There's Olive, and there's Alfie, and there's
Yeah, but
Lola.
yeah,
There's a few.
I know. There is a whole host, but I just know that those two are there right now.
Yeah, they are. They are chaotic little monsters. Okay, well, thanks very much again for staying the course and being happy to defer this one till a little bit later. Appreciate
Yeah.
that. Good to chat. Nice to enjoy Sunday after 3 points. Bloody hell,
I
it's
know
been a
it's
while.
actually
It's really
it's
been a while.
yeah. Oh my
Um,
god, man.
anyway, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah.
So After Dark will be back during the week. I'm not sure exactly when, but either Wednesday or Thursday evening. So look out for that. Sure, you'll see some signs and noises on our socials. But until then, I hope everyone has a good week. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, come on, you whites. Lost my mouse, but I found it again.